Thank you so much, Sergey. And as you mentioned, so first of all, it's a pleasure for me. So welcome to this Greenplum update and roadmap. Thank you for joining so late. It's always a pleasure for me to present during the Tinkoff meetup. My name is Franck Sidi. I'm the director of data for VMware Tanzu, mainly working for the last 11 years on Greenplum. So before I will start, and because I will talk about the roadmap, so of course it's a plan can change. So it's important to say that any purchasing decision should be made only on functionality available. So agenda for tonight, I will start with some improvement we add on top of Greenplum 6 since the latest update I have done in June. And then I will explain what will come in the next calendar year in 2022. Then I will do a very brief update regarding Greenplum 7 and we'll close with a Q&A. Feel free to ask all the questions that you may have. So let's start with the utility Recover Seg. So as you may know, whenever you need to recover a fail segment, it can be primary or mirror, you need to use the Recover Seg utility. So important to say that we made a lot of improvement and fix on Recover Seg up to the release 6.18. And using this release, in most of the case, you will be able to do incremental recovery and not a full recovery. But again, it's important for us to add additional improvement. So in the next release coming, a good news is the release 6.19 will be available tonight. So you will be able to download from the VMware website. And by end of January, we'll have another important release, 6.20, and we'll do some additional improvement in the Recover Seg utility. The first one is the ability to recover the segment in the independent way. So today, if you have to recover five fail segment, if one of the segment will fail, all the 5 segment will fail, and you will have to do it back. In this release, in 6.20, as soon as the segment will be marked up, this segment will be recovered, and you will not wait for the additional segment to be recovered. So that's an important functionality that we are adding in release 6.20. And another important improvement that we are planning to do in the Recover Seg utility is this notion of independence. What does it mean? It means that if you recover a segment and if the segment will fail in the middle, you will have to restart from the beginning. By adding this new capability, so the Recover Seg utility will be smart enough to start back from the point where it was failing. And lately, we are going to make improvement also on the PG-based backup utility. So this is the backup. This is the utility that you are using when you do a full recovery of failed segment, and especially for petascale, I would say Greenplum implementation, the ability to run also this utility in parallel will really help. And this is a question that I want to maybe you will answer during the Q&A. I will be very interested to see any customer, any people using Greenplum with a petascale cluster. Of course, we have multiple, and it will be nice to share some experience. So let's continue and look about what we have delivered with Command Center. So it's a matter of fact that Command Center is becoming more and more important component of the VMware Greenplum release. In the last, in 2021, we delivered 3 releases of Command Center, 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6. If we look about what we have adding inside this important interface, So first of all, on top of being able to monitor query, you can also monitor no session. We had also ability to do advanced search. So it's very useful, especially when you have hundreds of concurrent sessions and you want to look for a specific session. We had also in 6.5 ability to pause the query monitor. And you can see on the top, we had also some new link for feedback and notification. So notification, as you may know, in Command Center, you may define alert. So we have now a UI where we collect all the notification. And on the right, you can also give feedback to the Command Center team. So it's today mainly in English and in Chinese. We will add also in Russian, where you can send information and requests regarding improvement that you would like to get in the product. Another additional improvement is, in Command Center, you can define what we call workload management rules. So we had the ability to define rules. So I heard during the meetup, we were talking about the spill file size. So you have, for instance, ability to define a rule, and if the spill file size will be over a specific threshold, automatically you can execute an action, and an action could be to move this specific query from one resource group to another. We had, if you look on the right panel, also ability to define rules where we will automatically, for instance, kill idle a session after a specific amount of time. So another interesting functionality is this notion of visual metrics. So it's available, now it's GA. We had some color coding. So we do color coding at the slice level. So it will give you a better understanding on, on the query plan, especially if the query plan is very complex. And also from this interface, you will be able to understand very quickly what are the slices which are the most consuming in terms of I/O, CPU, or memory. Another major improvement is now ability to get also report and to get information at the resource group level, especially if you have a high concurrency on the system. So I have system, Greenplum system, where we have 100 of concurrent session with 100 of stream. So of course, the resource group is the way to manage the workload management. So we add this type of report. And more than that, we give you also ability to create and to deliver some chargeback reports. So every month, every week, every day, you can assign a specific specific login to specific department and produce report from the UI where you will be able to compute all the CPU information, memory, total query, and of course all the I/O consumed by this specific session. And lately, we add also in Command Center a lot of view that you can query directly, where we can save a real-time query metric, the number of query whose runtime is longer on a specific interval, per user, per segment. So a lot of information that will make the I would say the DBA life easier on the platform. Okay, so that's improvement that we have in Command Center. Let's move to a second component, the streaming engine. So the streaming engine is really also an important asset. So we have out-of-the-box integration with Kafka. And of course, we are loading the data in parallel, whatever the format. So by end of this month, we will deliver a new release of Greenplum streaming server, release 1.7. It will include ability to stream one specific Kafka topic to a multiple Greenplum table destination, so one-to-n. We will add also the same option regarding CSV as we have in GP load. And then we will also add two interesting integration, one with RabbitMQ. where you will be able to load data directly from a RabbitMQ queue to Greenplum using, for instance, CSV mode, and the same from S3. And of course, in the streaming engine, we can load data in an insert mode, but we can also load the data in a merge mode, exactly the same as you have in gpload. Okay, so that was the first part of this presentation. Let's look now about what's coming in 2022 on top of Greenplum 6. And I will start with a functionality that we will implement in GA by February timing. As you know, one of the big advantage of Greenplum, this is based on Postgres, so we can benefit from multiple extension. One of the extension that we were using is this disk Quota extension. So what we decide to do is to improve the extension and give also the ability not only to set this quota at the user level or at the schema level, but also at the table space level. So if you are using different class of storage, you will be able to define this quota and say, for instance, okay, John will have a quota of 100 gig on the PG default table space. Or if you have NVMe table space or SSD table space, you will be able also to give and to assign quota for this specific table space for a role or for a schema. What we want to do as well is to prevent data skew, especially when you do a big insert command or create table as select. So we will add also the ability to control the data skew, and if we will fill data more than a specific ratio and on a specific segment, automatically we'll be able to cancel this specific query. And this is the transition to the next step. Currently in the disk quota extension, we are using what we call the soft limit. So even if you are over, I would say the limit, the current query will not be cancelled. But by implementing the hard limit disk quota, we will automatically cancel a query whenever the query will, I will say, go over the threshold that we have defined. So it's a pretty a nice, I will say, functionality, especially again also for a system where we have a multi-tenant approach and a very high concurrency. One of the major new functionality that we will add in the March timing is this notion of Greenplum to Greenplum. So this is what we call the Greenplum Data Federation, where we'll give you the opportunity to query data from one Greenplum cluster to another Greenplum cluster. So this is something that I already present in the June update. Of course, it will be include some pretty nice optimization, like a John push down, like a predicate push down, like a column projection, and of course integration with Kerberos in terms of authentication. So we are planning to make this beta in January and to make this functionality GA in March. It took a bit more time because we had to backport some of the code from Greenplum 7 in Greenplum 6 to make this functionality available. So I'm not a Russian speaker. As Sergey mentioned, I can speak English with a bit of French accent. But I saw a very interesting and nice presentation from the Yandex team, if I'm not wrong. So we are planning to add a lot of improvement at the storage level, at the backup level. One important functionality will be about the WAL archiving. So I heard about the WAL G functionality. And I want to acknowledge that I really like when we have the community adding some innovation in the Greenplum core engine. And we will see the way we can implement this in a very short timing. So that's a priority for us to be able to set up DR with Greenplum. The number two is the ability to use Z standard algorithm for compressing backup. So it's already done. And again, I want to acknowledge that it was the Z standard algorithm was developed initially by the community as well. One, I will say, a major request that we have is ability to backup and to restore with a different number of segments. So that's the plan for 2022. And we acknowledge also that you may have to do a copy or synchronization of your Greenplum cluster using some external utilities. So we will implement the gpause and the gpresume utility, where instead of stopping and restarting Greenplum, the gpause will automatically stop all transactions to the Greenplum, and you will be able to manage a safe external copy, and then after resuming the load to the Greenplum. The latest topic is the certification on vSAN using what we call mirrorless. Of course, you need to implement mirror when you are working with Greenplum, but on vSAN, we will support and certify the ability to use Greenplum without mirror, because you will mainly use I will say, the functionality available on vSAN. So let's continue. Important improvement also to come on PXF. So we acknowledge that PXF is a major component, especially for the Russian community. So we made improvement regarding type of data type that we can support, especially for JSON and Avro. Improvement regarding Kerberos for the delegations, so where you will be able to use a proxy user will be different from the, I would say, GP admin. The support for the Hive3 ACID transaction table is something that we are planning to implement. And then we have a big, I would say, reflection and improvement plan regarding the architecture of PXF in terms of the way we can share a command work pool, especially for the I/O. And also, in case of a JVM will fail down, ability to automatically reconnect the PXF services to another JVM. So that's an important plan that we will implement in 2022. And the latest topic is the integration inside GPCC. So we want to get PXF fully managed by the command center utility. So being able to start, stop, sync the cluster. And you will see also ability to load also PXF job directly from command center. Okay. Important improvement also in the engine. During the last update, I present that in 6.16, we had this notion of non-bursting CPU limit. Just to explain again, you know that when you are using resource group, by default, the CPU is in a flex mode. So if you set a limit of 30%, but if the CPU is available, you may go beyond the 30% limit. By using this setting from 6.16, you can define that all the resource group will use a strict mode. So it means that they could not go beyond the limit you will have defined. We want to implement this limit not at the global level, but at the resource group level. And this is in the plan now for 2022. Another improvement will be, again, I come back to the Postgres extension. So we'll support PG TRGM extension for inverted index. And I will show you some example, and also the B3 gene index. And this is something very interesting, especially when you have to query text. The transparent data encryption will be implemented by June timing. It took also a bit more time, but it will provide ability to encrypt the table file, the system file on the disk, and this is in the plan. And then we have a huge amount of improvement regarding the optimizer. So cardinality estimation for special predicate, eliminating nested loop, better handling type of query like in, not in, subquery, having Orca also choosing, I will say, plan with index, and also doing some improvement, especially for HTAP scenario where you can have a high concurrency with update command, and especially if you don't update the distribution key. Lately, as I told you, the streaming engine, the main plan that we have, so currently when you do transformation in the streaming engine, we are using an ELT approach, and the transformation is done by Greenplum. I can tell you, I was talking about petascale cluster. I have customer loading every day in between 5 to 10 million rows per second on Greenplum using the streaming engine from Kafka. But what we are planning to do is also to give the opportunity to use the streaming engine like a ETL platform. We have customers using the streaming engine on Kubernetes, so they can scale up, scale down a high number of streaming engine in a very dynamic way. And we want to be able to implement the pre-processing on the transformation using Golang language. And the latest one is also the same way as PeakSafe. We want to integrate the streaming service in terms of manageability inside Command Center. So I was talking about the inverted index. Maybe in the chat you will tell me who is interested with inverted index. So for this meetup, I prepare a very small use case on a small cluster. So I had a 1 billion row table, and I count on the logs, and I use a regular expression, and I use a like percentage a pattern. And you know that in most of the case, you are not using indexes. And the query took almost 20 minutes, pretty long. So what I have done, I create an inverted index. You know that in Postgres, and that's also something very, very good, you can create index on expression. So I create exactly the same expression as I have on my query, and I use a new operator. And this is the operator that we are planning to, I will say, to support in beginning of 2022. So I create the index, and then I run exactly the same query. And guess what? The same query used the index, okay? And the same query was running in 330 milliseconds. Okay, so I moved from 20 minutes to below, I would say, 500 milliseconds, like this. By using this type of index, we are very efficient, especially when you have to query text. Okay, so let's complete. And I will complete with Command Center. So we have a big plan for, and you will see the way we want to make, again, the life of the DBA and people managing and operating Greenplum easier. So in the first quarter of next year, we will give you ability to load the data from S3 and to manage and monitor the job directly from Command Center. So creating jobs, starting, stop, removing the jobs, and of course, as you can see here, defining the job using a YAML approach directly from the UI. We want to add also a new type of workload management rules. So here, we'll be able to create a new rules based on the CPU's queue. So if the queue will be over a specific threshold for a period of time, so you will be able also to define an action. And again, I come back to the query details. So we have this notion of visual metric available since November, but we want to have more information like the query detail, ability also to introspect the inner query, especially for function. So everything will be available from the UI. And if you look about the plan we have regarding Command Center, we want to work on 4 important directions. Number 1 is intelligence. The second is about insight. The third is about interface. And the fourth is about integration. So what we are planning to add in the product is first a compression advisor. Then we'll add a memory advisor, a partitioning advisor, and then certainly before the end of the year, recommendation regarding reindex and recommendation regarding query optimization. So that's important plan, again, to make Greenplum faster and better. The second panel is about insight. So as I told you, one of the main, I would say, requests is to get information regarding the inner query and the function. Regarding the interface, we want to provide ability to drill down directly from the cluster view to the query, and also to make command center available from an API. So if you want to kick off the recommendation engine, you will be able to do it from an API. And then the latest dimension is about integration. So I show you ability to load data from S3, but we want to continue by providing this capability to create job from Kafka, from file, or from PXF, and again, integration for GPSS and PXF. We have some additional work in the to-do list, running gprecoverseg Seg from GPCC, showing table access by a query, having a query replay approach. So that's also inside our backlog. This is not yet start, but feel free also to go back on the feedback and to give us your view regarding what we should implement first. So this is what I wanted to share today regarding Greenplum 6. I know that I will have the question. I can tell you that we are pushing hard to make Greenplum 7 available. So Greenplum 7 is still based on Postgres 12. We are planning alpha release in H1, the beta release in H2, and hopefully the GA release starting calendar year 2023. So, spasiba, thank you. And, you know, Sergey, again, thank you for inviting me. Thank you to Yulia. Thank you to the Tinkoff team. And I'm available for any question. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Thank you, Franck, for your presentation. I have a personal question. We use Greenplum 5 now, and we are missing very deeply disk quotas. Do you have any plans to backport disk quota rules to 5 version?
So, Sergey, that's an interesting question, because today I discussed with the engineering team implementing the disk quota, especially the hard limit, because we were pushing for hard limit. And they asked me if any Greenplum 5 customer was interested also by the backport. So I can go back to them and explaining that people like Tinkoff will be interested. My view is, Sergey, that I will advise to move to 6. So 6 from 6.18. Now we have much more, I would say, stability. We have petascale. We have, I would say, a stronger experience. So we can guide you. But I will go back to you regarding the disk quota.
Yeah. Okay. It's promising. Because it's not easy to migrate from 5 to 6 if you have a lot of users, a lot of ETL running every day to maintain business. You know, we try to do this, but we have a lot of SLA violations because of some queries that run reasonably fast in 5 version became slow in 6, and it's not simple to migrate. So
no.
we understand that it's better to migrate, but we wait for our engineers to properly test everything. So it's not fast process. We have one question from our users. Tony writes, "Bonjour, Franck. Kava." I don't know what kava means. Maybe it's something inappropriate. Tell me if it is. will it possible to use incremental backup with PG backup in future with any types of tables? Thanks in advance.
So, so the incremental backup, the way we implement it, we implement for append-only table because we have a marker. Tony, if you can go back to me directly, because I will be interested to understand why you are still using heap table. Maybe because you have primary key. Because in most of the case, I think you should implement and use append-only table. Because append-only table, you can also do update on this kind of table. Okay?
Тут меня поправляют. Tony tells that it's appropriate to read Sava, not Kava.
Okay.
French is not my language. Okay. It was very interesting to see how your plans corresponds with two themes that guys from Tinkoff and Yandex showed us, because the first one was Inquisition utility that corresponds with your GPS command center functionality of killing queries by some rules. And the second, you also will implement a lot of backup possibilities and disaster recovery options for Greenplum. It's interesting how you take an idea from us. We give in Russian мы говорим Тиньков задает тренды. In English it would be Tinkoff gives trends, I think.
And I can tell you, Sergey, why. Because something changed for the last, I would say, 18 months. A lot of feature requests are coming from, I would say, big implementation. So you mentioned that you have currently a Greenplum 5 cluster, and it's difficult to move to 6. So I can acknowledge. It's important to say that now we have a direct upgrade utility that we can guide you by replaying the query with a tool we develop. But regarding the point you mentioned, and again with the WAL-G, for instance, replication from Yandex, they are top priority of big customers. So when you have a petascale cluster, you need a DR. And you need a DR that you can sync in a very easy way. The same if you have I would say 100 or 200 tera cluster. So there are functionality that we are pushing, and I can promise, and you can count on us, that it will be implemented very soon. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Franck, for visiting us virtually via Zoom. Yes. It was pleasure to see you, to hear you. Спасибо тем, кто дослушал нас до конца, и я думаю, на этом можно завершать. Всем стабильных кластеров и больших данных. Пока.
So always a pleasure, Sergey, and I will come back regarding the Quota. Thank you,
Yes.
Spasiba, and have a great evening. Thank you.